An exciting story of redemption, love, passion, and new beginnings. A 17-year-old virgin marries a billionaire, only to discover on their wedding night that he is also a virgin. But before I tell this story, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Now continuing. The sun was setting on the horizon as Emily gazed at her reflection in the oval mirror of her bedroom. Her delicate fingers adjusted the white veil one last time, while her heart beat in an irregular rhythm that she tried in vain to control. At just 17, she was about to take a step that would change her life forever. The cream-colored walls of the room seemed like silent witnesses to her transformation. Every object there told a story of her sheltered childhood. The dolls still arranged on the shelf, romance novels carefully organized, family photographs in silver frames. All of this belonged to a past that, in a few hours, would be left behind. "Emily, it's time." The voice of her mother, Mrs. Catherine, sounded through the closed door. It was a voice that carried the weight of tradition, the expectations of generations. "Coming, Mom," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. The white dress, with its delicate train and intricate embroidery, represented much more than a simple bride's outfit. It was the symbol of everything she had been taught since she was little: purity, obedience, tradition. Each hand-sewn pearl told a story of expectations. Each fold of fabric hid promises of a future that others had planned for her. As she descended the stairs of the Mitchell mansion, Emily felt the weight of stares upon her. The guests, all members of high society, murmured polite approvals, but it was Nathan Mitchell's eyes, her groom, that she sought in the crowd. He was there, imposing in his black suit, green eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart leap. Nathan Mitchell, at 29, was a figure who inspired both admiration and fear. His face, though undoubtedly handsome, rarely showed emotion. It was as if an invisible mask covered his features, hiding secrets that Emily could hardly imagine. The ceremony proceeded like a hazy dream. The priest's words echoed distantly, as if coming from another world. Emily watched her own trembling hands as Nathan slid the ring onto her finger, a mechanical gesture, precise, devoid of the tenderness she secretly longed for. During the reception, the whispers of guests reached her ears like fragments of a story she didn't want to hear. So young. The Mitchell Empire. Agreement between families. Each word was a small stab to her romantic illusions. Nathan kept his distance, talking with executives and partners, his posture as rigid as ever. Occasionally their gazes crossed across the ballroom, and Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something in those green eyes, something beyond the usual coldness, something she couldn't decipher. As the night progressed, anxiety grew in her chest. The wedding night approached, that mythical moment about which her mother had spoken in half words and veiled warnings. Emily had been raised for this moment, but nothing in her privileged education had prepared her for the reality that awaited. When they finally arrived at the luxurious hotel where they would spend the night, the silence between them was deafening. The room had been meticulously prepared. Rose petals on the king-size bed, chilled champagne, aromatic candles strategically placed. It was like a scene from one of the romance novels Emily used to read in secret. Nathan closed the door behind him, and the click of the lock sounded like a final sentence. Emily remained standing in the middle of the room, her hands clasped in front of her body, her heart beating so hard that she was sure he could hear it. "You're trembling," Nathan observed, his deep voice breaking the silence. It wasn't a question, just a clinical observation. "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He approached slowly, like a predator studying his prey. His steps were measured, calculated. When he was just inches away from her, Emily could smell his cologne, an expensive masculine fragrance that made her head spin. "You don't need to be afraid," he said, but his words sounded hollow, as if reciting a rehearsed script. Nathan's hands touched her shoulders, and Emily felt an involuntary tremor run through her body. His touch was gentle, but something was wrong. A hesitation, a tension she hadn't expected. When their eyes met, she saw something in his that surprised her. Fear. That's when it happened. Nathan leaned in to kiss her, his lips meeting hers, in a soft touch that soon transformed into something more intense, almost desperate. Emily felt lost in that kiss, her legs weakening under the weight of emotions consuming her. But, as suddenly as it began, the kiss ended. Nathan pulled away, abruptly, as if he'd received an electric shock. His face, normally impassive, was contorted in an expression that mixed desire and terror. I can't," he murmured, his voice hoarse with contained emotion. Emily stood paralyzed, watching as he moved away even further, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of evident disturbance. What should have been a moment of union, of surrender, had transformed into something completely different. "Nathan?" she called, her voice small and uncertain. But he didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window of the room, his back turned to her, his shoulders tense under the thin fabric of his shirt. The silence that followed was different from the previous one. It was loaded with unrevealed secrets, hidden pain. In that moment, Emily realized that her marriage would be very different from what she had imagined. Something in Nathan was broken, something that went beyond his known coldness in business. And now she was irremediably linked to him, trapped in a web of mysteries that was just beginning to reveal itself. What she didn't know was that that night would be just the beginning of a journey that would test not only her love, but her own understanding of what it meant to love someone. The days following the wedding night were an exercise in silence and distance. Nathan immersed himself in his work with even more intensity, spending long hours at the Mitchell Enterprises office, while Emily wandered through the empty corridors of the mansion she now called home. The Mitchell property was a testament to the family's wealth and power, an imposing three-story construction with meticulously maintained gardens and a staff of employees who moved like silent ghosts through the rooms. But for Emily, it was like living in a golden prison. On a particularly cold morning, while having her solitary breakfast in the immense dining room, Emily was surprised by the arrival of Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper who had worked for the Mitchells for more than 30 years. "Mrs. Mitchell," said Mrs. Wilson, her gentle voice carrying a note of concern. "There's something you need to know." Emily raised her eyes from her teacup, intrigued. Mrs. Wilson was known for her discretion. If she was breaking protocol to speak with her, it must be something important. "What is it, Mrs. Wilson?" The housekeeper hesitated for a moment, nervously looking around before continuing. "It's about Mr. Nathan. There's something in his past that few know about. Something that happened 10 years ago." Emily's heart accelerated. "Go on, please." "There was a young woman, Sophia was her name. She and Mr. Nathan were very close when he was 19. But then—" Mrs. Wilson paused, as if weighing her words. "There was an accident. Terrible. After that, he was never the same." Emily felt a knot form in her throat. What kind of accident? But before Mrs. Wilson could answer, a deep and cutting voice interrupted the conversation. "What's going on here?" Nathan was standing at the dining room door, his face a mask of contained fury. Mrs. Wilson visibly paled, making a quick curtsy before hurriedly withdrawing. "I don't pay my employees to spread gossip," said Nathan, his voice dangerously calm. His eyes, normally cold, now burned with an intensity that made Emily shiver. "She was just trying to help," Emily defended, gathering courage she didn't know she possessed. "Maybe if you told me." "There's nothing to tell," he cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. "The past is dead and buried, Emily. I suggest you focus on the present." But there was something in his posture, an almost imperceptible tension that betrayed his words. Emily realized she had touched a deep wound, one that still bled after all these years. The following weeks were marked by a subtle change in the dynamics between them. Nathan began to arrive home earlier, although he still kept his distance. Sometimes Emily caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, his gaze loaded with a mixture of desire and fear that she was beginning to recognize. One night during a particularly silent dinner, Emily decided to risk again. "Why did you marry me, Nathan?" The question seemed to take him by surprise. He lowered his cutlery slowly, his eyes meeting hers across the extensive table. "You know why. It was an agreement between our families." "Just that," she insisted, her heart beating strongly in her chest. Nathan remained silent for a long moment, as if fighting an internal battle. When he finally spoke, his voice was loaded with contained emotion. "You remind me of her," he said, almost in a whisper. "Not physically, but there's something in your spirit. The same innocence, the same hidden strength." Emily felt her world spin with that confession. "Sophia?" The name seemed to echo through the dining room like a summoned ghost. Nathan rose abruptly, his chair scraping the marble floor. "Don't say that name," he ordered. But his voice trembled slightly. "You have no idea what you're meddling with." "Emily?" She rose too, moved by a courage she didn't know she possessed. "Then tell me, how do you expect me to be your wife if you keep so many secrets?" Nathan crossed the distance between them in a few steps, his green eyes fixed on hers with a frightening intensity. For a moment, Emily thought he was going to yell at her. Instead, he did something that surprised her even more. He kissed her. It wasn't like the kiss on their wedding night, hesitant and controlled. This was a desperate kiss full of fury and repressed desire. Emily felt herself melt under his touch, her legs weakening as Nathan's hands pulled her closer. When they finally separated, both were breathless. Nathan pressed his forehead against hers, his eyes closed as if in pain. "You don't understand," he murmured. "I can't lose anyone else. I can't go through that again." "You won't lose me," Emily promised, her hands gently caressing his face. "But I need you to trust me." Nathan moved away slowly, his face regaining the mask of control he habitually wore. But there was something different in his eyes now, a vulnerability Emily had never seen before. "There are things about me, about my family, that you're not ready to know," he said, his voice low and intense. "Things that could put your life in danger." Before Emily could respond, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the mansion. Nathan was instantly alert, his muscles tense like an animal ready to attack. "Stay here," he ordered, quickly heading for the door. But Emily had already realized the noise came from Nathan's office, where he kept his most important documents, and by the expression on his face, she knew that his worst fears were being confirmed. The game was just beginning, and she had inadvertently become a crucial piece in something much larger than a simple arranged marriage. Nathan's office was in chaos when they entered. Papers scattered on the floor, drawers ripped out, and the safe behind the Renoir painting was wide open and empty. But what most caught Emily's attention was the message written in red on the wall. "The past always collects its price." Nathan stood paralyzed for a moment, his face paler than normal. His eyes scanned the office with an expression that mixed fury and fear, a combination Emily had never seen in him before. "Call the police," he ordered, his voice tense as he headed to the safe. But before Emily could reach the phone, Nathan stopped her. "No, wait. We can't involve the authorities in this." "Why not?" she questioned, feeling a shiver of fear run down her spine. Nathan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of his anguish. "Because this isn't a simple robbery, Emily. It's a message." He walked to his desk, opening a secret drawer that apparently the intruders hadn't discovered. From inside, he removed an envelope yellowed by time. 10 years ago, he began, his voice low and controlled, "I was in love with Sofia Rodriguez. She was the daughter of Ricardo Rodriguez, my family's greatest business rival." Emily felt her heart speed up. Finally, Nathan was opening up. "We planned to run away together," he continued, his eyes fixed on the envelope in his hands. "We had discovered documents that proved that both my father and hers were involved in illegal business. We thought we could use this information as a guarantee of our freedom." "What happened?" Emily asked softly, approaching him. "On the night we planned our escape, there was an accident." Nathan's voice faltered slightly. "Sophia's car was found at the bottom of a cliff. The body was never recovered." Emily brought her hands to her mouth, horrified. "You think it wasn't an accident?" "I'm sure it wasn't," he replied, his eyes meeting hers with a frightening intensity. "And whoever did it is back. At that moment, a noise from the hallway made them both turn. Mrs. Wilson was standing at the door, her face a mask of concern. "Mr. Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. "There's a call for you. They say it's urgent." Nathan picked up the phone with steady hands, putting it on speakerphone. A distorted voice filled the room. "The sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children, Nathan Mitchell. You have something that belongs to us, and now you have something even more precious to lose." The look Nathan gave Emily was loaded with fear, not for himself, but for her. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice cutting. "The original documents. We know you have a copy. You have 48 hours to deliver, or your young wife will meet the same fate as Sophia." The line went dead, leaving only the sound of Emily's accelerated heart echoing in her ears. "You need to tell me everything," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'm no longer just your convenience wife, Nathan. I'm involved in this now." He observed her for a long moment, as if seeing her for the first time. Then, without warning, he pulled her into his arms, embracing her with a strength that surprised her. "I can't lose you too," he murmured against her hair. "I can't go through this again." Emily felt something change inside her at that moment. The fear was still there, but there was something more. A determination she didn't know she possessed. "Then don't lose me," she replied, moving away enough to look into his eyes. "Trust me, let me help." Nathan hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. He went to his desk, taking a key he always carried with him. The original documents were never in the safe, he revealed, opening a false drawer under the desk. "Sophia, and I made copies before the accident. The originals are in a place that only I know." "What do they contain?" asked Emily, watching as he removed an old folder from the drawer. "Evidence of a conspiracy that goes far beyond our families," explained Nathan, his voice low and urgent. "Involvement with cartels, money laundering, even murders. My father and Ricardo Rodriguez were just the tip of the iceberg." He opened the folder, revealing documents, photographs, and an old USB drive. "This is pure dynamite, Emily. This is why Sophia died. This is why they never stopped looking for me. Why didn't you turn it over to the police?" "Because I don't know who's involved," he answered, putting everything away again. "The corruption goes too far. That's why I closed myself off from the world, why I built this fortress around myself. It was the only way to stay alive." Emily touched his face gently, feeling the tension in his jaw. "But now, you're not alone. Anymore." Nathan closed his eyes at her touch, as if that simple gesture both hurt and comforted him at the same time. "That's exactly what scares me," he confessed. "When I married you, it was just an arrangement. There weren't supposed to be feelings involved, but now what?" she prompted, her heart beating hard in her chest. Before he could answer, the lights of the mansion suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Nathan pull Emily protectively behind him. "They wouldn't wait 48 hours, he murmured, his voice tense. "It was just a distraction." Emily felt fear grow in her chest, but also a strange excitement. In just a few hours, her life had transformed into something she barely recognized. But one thing she knew for certain: she wouldn't let Nathan face this alone. The sound of glass breaking downstairs confirmed their worst fears. The house was being invaded, and they were trapped in the office in the dark, with deadly secrets and enemies approaching. "Trust me," she whispered, squeezing Nathan's hand. "We'll face this together." In the dark, she couldn't see his expression, but she felt when he intertwined his fingers with hers, squeezing them gently in response. It was more than a gesture of agreement. It was a silent promise. The game had changed, and now it wasn't just about survival. It was about trust, about love, about two broken hearts learning to heal together amid danger. The darkness of the office was cut only by the moonlight coming through the window, creating elongated shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. Nathan guided Emily silently to a bookshelf in the corner of the room. "There's a secret passage here," he whispered, his lips close to her ear. "It was built during World War II. It leads to an abandoned house 2 miles from here." With precise movements, he pulled an old copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, a choice Emily found ironically appropriate. The bookshelf silently slid to the side, revealing a dark corridor. The footsteps downstairs were getting closer. Muffled voices echoed through the hallways of the mansion, and the sound of more glass breaking indicated that the intruders weren't being subtle. "You need to go," said Nathan, pushing the folder with the documents into her hands. "Not without." "Sayu," she protested, grabbing his arm. "Emily, listen." His voice was urgent, but there was a softness she had never heard before. "They expect to find us together. I need to create a distraction while you take the documents to a safe place. But I can't lose you," he interrupted, holding her face between his hands. "Not like I lost Sophia. You're different. You're—" The sound of footsteps in the hallway interrupted them. Nathan quickly pushed Emily into the passage, but before closing the entrance, he did something that took her completely by surprise. He kissed her. It was a kiss different from all the previous ones. There was no hesitation, no fear. It was a kiss of farewell, of promise, of all the feelings Nathan had kept locked away for so long. "There's a disposable cell phone and money inside the folder," he whispered against her lips. "Go to the Grandeur Hotel downtown. Book a room under the name Miranda Santos. I'll meet you there." Before Emily could protest again, the passage closed, leaving her in complete darkness. Silent tears ran down her face as she heard the sound of the office door being broken down. With trembling hands, she took the cell phone from the folder and used its light to illuminate the path. The tunnel was narrow and damp, with cobwebs in the corners and the occasional sound of rats. Running in the dark. As she walked, she could hear her heart beating strongly in her chest. Each step took her further from Nathan, and she didn't know if she would see him again. The folder in her hands seemed to weigh a ton, not for its physical content, but for the weight of the secrets it carried. After what seemed like an eternity, Emily reached the end of the tunnel. A metal ladder led to a door in the ceiling. With effort, she pushed it and found herself in a small abandoned house exactly as Nathan had described. The disposable cell phone showed several text messages, all from different numbers, but with the same cryptic content. "The raven flies at midnight." It was some kind of code, she realized, but its meaning remained a mystery. A taxi passed by the deserted street at that moment, as if it were a sign of destiny. Emily called it, giving the address of the Grandeur Hotel to the driver. During the entire journey, her thoughts were with Nathan, imagining what might be happening at the mansion. At the hotel, she followed Nathan's instructions to the letter, registering as Miranda Santos. The room was luxurious, but she barely noticed the details. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she opened the folder and began to examine its contents more closely. The documents were even more disturbing than Nathan had suggested. There were records of bank transfers to offshore accounts, compromising photographs of important politicians and businessmen, and detailed reports of illegal operations that extended for decades. But it was one photograph in particular that caught her attention. It showed a younger Nathan smiling next to a beautiful dark-haired woman, Sophia. They looked so happy, so carefree. On the back of the photo was a handwritten message. "There's always a way out. Don't give up." The sound of footsteps in the corridor made her freeze. Someone knocked on the door 3 times, paused, then 2 more times. Would it be the code Nathan would use to identify himself? Or had the pursuers managed to track her? With her heart in her throat, Emily hid the folder in the back of the closet and silently approached the door. The knock was repeated. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. "Nathan?" she called, her voice just a whisper. "Open the door, Emily," replied a female voice she didn't recognize. "We need to talk about Sophia." Emily's blood froze in her veins. The voice was soft, almost familiar, as if she had heard it before, but how was that possible? Sophia had been dead for 10 years. Or was she? The doorknob began to turn slowly, and Emily realized with horror that she had forgotten to set the security lock. Her heart seemed about to explode as the door opened slowly, revealing a figure that would change everything she thought she knew about Nathan and his past. The woman who entered the room was like a ghost materialized from the photographs Emily had just seen. Sophia turned to Emily, her eyes carrying an ancient sadness. The true extent of the corruption we discovered. It goes far beyond our families, far beyond what Nathan imagines. There are people in the government, in the judiciary, in positions of power who would do anything to keep these secrets buried. So you faked your own death? Let Nathan believe he had lost you? Emily's voice betrayed her indignation. He carried that guilt for 10 years. I had no choice, replied Sophia, her voice breaking slightly. That night, when we planned to escape, I received a warning. They showed me photos of Nathan, followed, watched. They said they would kill him if I didn't disappear. So I organized the accident, made it look like I had died. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of the revelations. Why are you revealing yourself now? Because they finally made a mistake. I've managed to gather enough evidence to destroy them. But I need the original documents that Nathan kept. They're the final piece of the puzzle. Sophia approached, her eyes pleading. Where's the folder, Emily? A moment of tension settled between the two women. Emily studied Sophia's face, looking for signs that she could trust her. How can I? Be sure you're telling the truth. Sophia smiled sadly, removing an envelope from her coat pocket. Because I have this. Inside the envelope were recent photographs. Important politicians in secret meetings, suitcases of money being exchanged, documents being destroyed. And in several of them, Nathan's father appeared alongside shadowy figures. Your father-in-law isn't just part of the conspiracy, explained Sophia. He's one of the leaders, and now that Nathan has married you, they're afraid he might discover the complete truth. The sound of sirens in the street called the attention of both. Sophia ran to the window, her body tense. They're coming, she murmured. We need to act quickly. At that moment, the disposable cell phone vibrated with a message. The nest is compromised. Find the raven at the place where it all began. It's from Nathan, said Emily, recognizing the code he had mentioned. But what does it mean? A smile of understanding illuminated Sophia's face. The place where it all began. He's talking about the vintage cafe. It was where we met, where we discovered the first signs of the conspiracy. How can I trust you? Asked Emily again, but this time her voice was firmer. How can I be sure? You're not working for them. Sophia approached, taking Emily's hands between hers. Because, like you, I love him. Unlike you, I had to give him up to keep him alive. Don't make the same mistake I did, Emily. Don't let him face this alone. The sound of footsteps in the corridor interrupted the conversation. Male voices could be heard, giving orders, approaching. We need to go, urged Sophia. There's a fire escape through the bathroom window. Take the folder. As Emily retrieved the documents from the closet, a doubt tormented her. Why didn't you look for Nathan before? Why let him suffer for so long? Because sometimes love means protecting someone, even if it means hurting them, replied Sophia, tears shining in her eyes. But now he has you, Emily. And together, we can finally end this. The sound of a door being broken down in the corridor made them act. In seconds, they were descending the fire escape, plunging into the agitated night of the city. Above them, angry voices and the sound of furniture being overturned indicated that their pursuers had found the empty room. But Emily barely registered the danger. Her mind was focused on Nathan, on how her life had transformed into a whirlwind of secrets and conspiracies. And yet, amid the chaos, a certainty grew in her heart. Her love for Nathan was no longer an obligation or an agreement. It was real, deep, and strong enough to face any challenge. Where are we going? She asked as they followed through dark alleys. To the beginning, replied Sophia. To save the man we both love. The streets of the city swallowed their hurried steps, while the night hid their faces. Somewhere, Nathan waited for them, not knowing that his past and his present were about to collide in a way that would change everything forever. Sofia Rodriguez was alive, and the years had been kind to her. Her dark hair now had a few silver strands, but her eyes maintained the same intense sparkle from the photo. You look like you've seen a ghost, said Sophia, an enigmatic smile playing on her lips. Though technically that's exactly what you're seeing. Emily retreated a few steps, her mind trying to process the reality before her. How? Why? It's a long story, replied Sophia, closing the door behind her. And I fear we don't have much time. Nathan is in danger. The mention of his name seemed to wake Emily from her stupor. Where is he? What happened at the mansion? Nathan managed to escape, but they're on his trail. Sophia walked to the window, observing the busy street below. He doesn't know I'm alive. Nobody knew until now. It was the only way to keep myself safe and continue investigating. Investigating what? The vintage cafe was closed at that hour of the night, its antique showcases covered by heavy curtains. The street was deserted except for a cat rummaging through a nearby trash can. Sophia guided Emily to a side door, typing a sequence of numbers on a worn panel. You still remember the password after so long? Whispered Emily, impressed. Some things you never forget, replied Sophia, a sad smile playing on her lips. It was here that I learned that not all love is strong enough against power and greed. The door opened with a soft click, revealing a dark and dusty interior. The smell of old coffee and old books filled the air, creating a nostalgic atmosphere that matched the dark wooden shelves and marble tables covered with white cloths. Nathan? Called Emily softly, her heart accelerating with each step. A movement in the shadows made her stop. Nathan emerged from behind a bookshelf, his face marked by scratches and a cut above his eyebrow. His eyes met Emily's first, filling with relief. But when his gaze landed on Sophia, his entire body froze. No, he murmured, stepping back. It's not possible. Nathan. Sophia's voice trembled slightly. I know you must hate me. You're dead, he interrupted, his voice hoarse with emotion. I saw the car, the accident. You saw what they wanted you to see, replied Sophia, taking a step in his direction. What I needed you to see to keep you alive. Nathan looked at Emily as if seeking confirmation that he wasn't hallucinating. She nodded gently, approaching him. She's telling the truth, Nathan, and she has evidence against your father, against all of them. My father? His voice was loaded with incredulity. What does he have to do with this? Sophia removed the photographs from the envelope, spreading them on one of the tables. Nathan examined them in silence, his face growing paler with each image. He's one of the leaders, explained Sophia. Always was. The accident was a message to show what would happen if we continued investigating. So you ran away, said Nathan, his voice bitter. Let me believe I had lost you. Let me carry that guilt. For 10 years. To protect you. Sophia took another step toward him. They would have killed you, Nathan, and I couldn't live in a world without you in it. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with 10 years of unresolved pain. Emily observed the scene, her heart torn between compassion for Sophia and the love she felt for Nathan. I understand, she said softly, surprising both. I would do the same. To protect you, Nathan, I would do anything. Nathan looked at her, and something in his eyes changed. It was as if for the first time he truly saw her, not as the arranged wife, not as a substitute for Sophia, but as someone who truly loved him unconditionally. We don't have much time, interrupted Sophia, checking her watch. Your pursuers won't take long to find us. We need the original documents, Nathan. Where are they? Nathan hesitated for a moment, looking between the two women. In the only place they would never think to look, he finally answered. In Sophia's empty grave. Noise in the street made them freeze. Car headlights illuminated the cafe's curtains, and the sound of doors slamming echoed in the night. They found us, whispered Sophia, her face tense. We need to go through the tunnels. Tunnels? Asked Emily. The cafe was a resistance point during the war, explained Nathan, moving quickly to a heavy rug on the floor. There's a network of tunnels that connects various points of the city. As he lifted the rug, revealing a door in the floor, male voices could be heard outside. The sound of breaking glass indicated that they were no longer concerned with being discreet. Quick, urged Nathan, helping Emily descend the narrow stairs. But before Sophia could follow them, the cafe door was broken down. In the chaos that followed, Emily saw Sophia push Nathan into the tunnel, closing the door over them. "Sophia, no!" shouted Nathan, but his voice was muffled by the sound of gunshots. Emily held him tightly, preventing him from climbing back. Up in the darkness of the tunnel, she could feel his body trembling, torn between the desire to save Sophia and the need to protect the documents and her. "She's giving us time," whispered Emily, tears running down her face. "We can't waste it." Above them, the sound of fighting and screams echoed through the floor. Nathan closed his eyes tightly, a single tear sliding down his face. "The cemetery," he finally said, his voice hoarse. "We need to get to the cemetery before them." As they ran through the dark tunnels, guided only by the weak light of their cell phones, Emily realized that love had many faces. Sometimes it was sacrifice, sometimes it was protection, and sometimes it was simply being there, holding someone's hand while they faced their worst nightmares. The sound of footsteps following them echoed on the damp walls of the tunnel, reminding them that the night was far from over. And somewhere above them, Sophia faced alone the demons that all of them had helped create. Oakwood Cemetery was immersed in shadows when Nathan and Emily emerged from the tunnels. The full moon cast a pale light on the tombstones, creating elongated shadows that seemed to dance among the graves. The air was heavy with the perfume of flowers left by visitors during the day. "This way," whispered Nathan, guiding her between rows of graves. Their steps were silent on the damp grass, and their breaths formed small clouds in the cold night air. Sophia's tomb was in a more isolated area of the cemetery, under the shade of an old oak tree. It was an elegant structure of white marble, with an angel of serene expression guarding the place where everyone believed she rested. "They never found a body," explained Nathan, his voice low and tense as he knelt before the tombstone. "Now I know why." His fingers traced the letters engraved in the marble. "Sophia Rodriguez, beloved daughter and fiancée," before moving to a small, almost imperceptible symbol in the corner of the stone. "Help me push," he asked. Together, they applied pressure to one side of the tombstone, which silently rotated, revealing a secret compartment. Inside, protected by a waterproof box, was a folder similar to the one Emily carried. "The original documents," said Nathan, carefully taking the folder, "along with something Sophia never knew I had." He opened the folder, revealing not just documents, but also a flash drive and a small digital recorder. "On the night of the supposed accident, I was recording all our conversations, trying to gather evidence," he explained. "I captured something I shouldn't have, a conversation between my father and his associates, planning not just Sophia's disappearance, but a series of other crimes." The sound of footsteps and distant voices made them freeze. Flashlights began to cut through the darkness of the cemetery, moving in their direction. "They followed us," whispered Emily, her heart speeding up. Nathan quickly closed the folder, handing it to her along with the one she already carried. "You need to go. There's a chapel near the east exit. Father Gabriel is an old friend. He'll help you." "I won't leave you," she protested, grabbing his arm. "Emily," his voice was loaded with emotion as he held her face between his hands. "You're the most precious thing that ever happened in my life. I can't lose you like I lost Sophia." "But Sophia is alive," she argued, "and she sacrificed everything to protect us. I won't do less." A shot cut through the air, the bullet hitting the marble near them. Nathan pushed Emily behind a larger tombstone, protecting her with his body. "It's over, son," a familiar voice echoed through the night. "There's nowhere to run." Nathan tensed upon recognizing his father's voice. Emily felt her heart tighten, seeing the pain in his eyes. "Why?" shouted Nathan. "Why did you do all this?" "Power, Nathan," replied his father, his voice approaching. "Something you never understood. Sometimes we need to sacrifice those we love for the greater good." "What greater good?" Nathan's voice was loaded with bitterness. "Money, influence. People died, Dad, and more people will die if you don't hand over the documents." The threat was clear in his voice. "Starting with your young wife." Emily felt Nathan become even tenser. She squeezed his hand, calling his attention. "Trust me," she whispered, a plan forming in her mind. Before Nathan could stop her, she stood up, holding the folders in her hands. "Mr. Mitchell," she called, her voice firmer than she felt. "How about a deal?" "Emily, no." Nathan tried to pull her back, but she remained firm. "What kind of deal?" asked Nathan's father, his voice revealing interest. "The documents in exchange for the truth," she proposed. "The complete truth about everything. Sophia, the business, the deaths. Nathan deserves to know." A cold laugh echoed through the night. "You're smarter than you seem, my dear, but I'm afraid I can't allow that." The sound of more footsteps indicated they were being surrounded. Emily could see flashlights approaching from all sides. "Then I'm afraid you have no choice," she replied, raising the folders. "Because these aren't the only copies. And if something happens to us tonight, tomorrow the whole city will know the truth." It was at that moment that a new sound cut through the night, police sirens rapidly approaching. And then a familiar voice shouted, "Federal police! Everyone freeze!" In the chaos that followed, Emily saw Sophia emerge from the shadows. Wearing a bulletproof vest with the FBI initials, she wasn't alone. Dozens of armed agents surrounded the cemetery. "Surprise, Mr. Mitchell," said Sophia, pointing her gun at Nathan's father. 10 years is a long time to build a case against you." Nathan looked at the scene in shock, trying to process that the woman he had loved wasn't just alive, but was an undercover agent. He began. "Later," interrupted Sophia, not taking her eyes off her target. "Now we need to finish this." But Nathan's father wasn't willing to surrender easily. With a quick movement, he drew a gun and pointed it at Emily. "If I'm going down," he said, "I won't go down alone." The sound of the shot echoed through the night, mixing with screams and more sirens. Emily felt Nathan throw himself in her direction, and then everything went dark. The smell of antiseptic was the first thing Emily noticed when she woke up. The soft light coming through the hospital window indicated it was early morning. She tried to move and felt a sharp pain in her shoulder. "Easy," Nathan's voice sounded beside her. "The doctor said you need to rest." He was sitting in a chair near the bed, his face marked by fatigue and concern. There was a bandage on his forehead, but other than that, he seemed unharmed. "What happened?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "You were shot," he replied, holding her hand with delicacy. "But you'll be fine. The bullet grazed your shoulder." The memories of the previous night began to return. The cemetery, Nathan's father, Sophia. "Your father." A shadow passed over Nathan's face. "He's in custody, as well as most of those involved in the scheme. Sophia, she spent the last 10 years building a case against all of them. It was a federal police operation from the beginning." Emily absorbed the information in silence. "How are you dealing with all this?" Nathan let out a deep sigh, running his fingers through his disheveled hair. "Honestly, I don't know. Discovering that my own father was the mastermind behind everything, that Sophia was alive and was a federal agent, that everything I believed to be true was a lie." "Not everything," Emily interrupted softly. "What I feel for you is real." He looked at her then, his green eyes shining with contained tears. "When I saw my father pointing that gun at you, it was as if my entire world stopped. I realized I couldn't bear to lose you. Not you, Emily." The door to the room opened softly, and Sophia entered. She had exchanged the FBI vest for civilian clothes, but her posture still carried the authority of a federal agent. "May I come in?" she asked. Nathan nodded, although Emily could feel his hand tighten on hers slightly. "The documents you recovered were the last piece we needed," explained Sophia. "Along with the evidence I gathered over all these years, we managed to dismantle the entire organization. Your father and the others will spend a long time in prison, Nathan." "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Why did you let me believe you were dead?" Sophia approached the bed, her face softening. "Because I needed your reaction to be genuine. If you had known the truth, they would have noticed. And," she hesitated, "because I knew I had to let you move on. Find a new love." Her gaze turned to Emily. "And you found it, a stronger and truer love than what we had." "Sophia," Nathan began, but she interrupted him with a gesture. "It's okay, Nathan. What we had was real, but it belongs to the past. You and Emily, and this is the present and the future. Silent tears ran down Emily's face as she observed the exchange between them. It was the closing of a cycle, the end of a story of pain, and the beginning of something new. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Sophia smiled. "Now you live, without secrets, without lies, without the weight of the past. Just love." She headed to the door but stopped before leaving. "Oh, and Nathan? Your father may have done terrible things, but he was right about one thing. Sometimes we need to sacrifice what we love for the greater good. The difference is that the true greater good is love, not power." After Sophia left, a comfortable silence settled in the room. Nathan leaned in, softly kissing Emily's lips. "You know," he said, "when I married you, I thought it would just be an arrangement. I never imagined I would find true love amid so much chaos." Emily smiled, touching his face with affection. "Sometimes love appears in the most unexpected places, and sometimes it needs to go through storms to discover its true strength." The morning sun now entered more strongly through the window, bathing the room in a golden light. It was a new day, a new beginning. The shadows of the past had finally been dispersed, leaving only the promise of a future illuminated by love. Nathan settled into the bed beside her, taking care with her injured shoulder. Together they watched the sunrise, knowing that each new day would be an adventure, no longer marked by secrets and conspiracies, but by the love they had discovered in each other. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I love you too," she replied, her heart overflowing with happiness. And so, in a hospital room bathed by the morning light, two souls who had met amid chaos finally found their peace. Because in the end, true love doesn't need agreements or arrangements. It simply is overcoming all obstacles and transforming even the most unlikely stories into unforgettable tales of love.